Welcome to Driven to Repair. This is John Webb, your host, managing partner of TenPoint Complete. The podcast is designed as an insight into automotive professionals with their own personal insights. Today we have a extremely special guest, Amy Shin, who is an expert in HR and recruitment, which, as we know, is always at the top of the list of concerns in the collision repair industry. And Amy, starting off here, just for a baseline, I've always had this question. You hear the term HR and chief people officer and recruiting. What is kind of the difference in those terminologies?
Sure. So HR is just the general overarching discipline within business. So human resources can take various tracks. So you have compensation, you have benefits, you have employee relations, which is a big deal as well as recruiting. So those are the 4 to 5 really big buckets. Um, if you're doing HR right in general, there's a great deal of value add that function can give a company. If you're not doing it well, a lot of companies can see HR as the no police. We're the ones who tell you, no, you cannot do that. My philosophy has always been to be a business person first, who happens to work in the HR function in order to support the business and um, support their initiatives to be successful. So, one of the pieces that you did just touch upon is recruitment. And that's really getting the people in the door. So, it's the first part of an employee life cycle, is how I see it. So an employee or a candidate shows up in your pipeline, you do all the appropriate vetting with the key stakeholders. Offer is made, they onboard, etc., and they start working in the function. So recruitment's really, really important because if you make the wrong hire, you will pay for it down the line and potentially for a long time. And that's kind of where your employee relations, management leadership really come into play to help manage either the person to success or to help them find another opportunity potentially outside your company.
I know you've
Recruitment.
had a.
Mm,
I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
just interject there a little bit. You've had a long career in various different companies, but when you think about the collision industry specifically, uh, what is the differences between, I guess, the Gen Zs and the millennials and the older generation, and what type of adjustments can be made to kind of attract those newer people into the industry?
Sure. So a lot of it is when you're specifically talking about recruiting, is making sure that you understand who your population is. So if you do want somebody who's early in career, you'll tend to have a age-wise, a younger set of folks that you're trying to attract. So basically understanding that landscape and how do you attract them. If you have a baby boomer or Gen Xer, it'll be a different way to do that. So much more around networking. I think for any population of candidates, it is important to network, period. A lot of people do tend to rely on referrals, word of mouth. And it's not necessarily please hire my nephew kind of thing, but it's more of a hey, I know a neighbor whose son is looking for some type of work. And it provides an opportunity to really network among different generations of people.
Yeah, and I think that's extremely important. I think in the collision repair industry, you've been around it for a number of years, I know, and worked in it for a period of time. But when you think about the opportunities in your background, and more specifically the trades compared to when I was growing up, it was, hey, let's go to college and let's try to figure things out there. And you know, I know that 10 Point Complete's been involved with various industry organizations throughout the years, whether it's, ICAR or Collision Repair Education Foundation, and even some of the other organizations like NABC, they all try to FCRS, and apologies, whoever I'm forgetting, there's a lot out there that are tremendously invested in this because it is so important. And there's, you know, a shortfall of hundreds of thousands of potential and open positions that we need to fill. And so again, getting back to the question about, a traditional track in the United States may be different than one in Germany, for example, but what are your thoughts around the trades specifically and it's potentially attracting uh, people into that uh, opportunity?
Right. So I think Um, it's kind of difficult to, especially for kind of a service organization or a service business model company, to really insert themselves into more the high school, pre-college kind of population, but definitely using foundations and organizations to really go into high schools, potentially even junior high schools, um, to just inform kids about what different types of careers are out there, right? So, um, you could go to trade schools, and talk about your opportunities, especially like in, like a multi-shop owner could go to the local high school or local trade school or community college and talk to some people or talk to career counselors, inform them, because, a lot of students do rely heavily on their guidance counselors or career counselors, to help them kind of narrow down what their path could look like. And so it would be great opportunity to work with those folks, to help kind of drive the message down to a larger population.
Yeah, and I think it's a huge challenge, and those are great thoughts there because a lot of these younger people don't even realize that the opportunities exist. And I mean, these are financially very lucrative opportunities. And I personally know people that have gone into this space and, worked and then opened up their own shop and then
Mhm.
expanded and then, sold and been extremely successful. So, yeah, getting out the word is definitely super important.
Yeah, I think I remember reading an article online. This kid's super smart, right? Loved technology, thought about computer animation, graphics, things like that. But for a summer job, he worked at a at a body shop, and he went to school. He was accepted into a very prestigious school. Um, did not like school. It was not a motivating learning environment for him. And so he went back to where he had his summer job and really started to learn the trade hands on. And they were very good about mentoring and coaching him. And then he opened his own shop. And then at the age of 24, I think he had a gross revenue of over $1 million. So, a lot of that is obviously being technically very good, great at customer service and things like that, networking himself. But it shows that at age 24, he can be a millionaire, right? Just you have to know your strengths. You have to know your strengths.
And you brought up technology, and I think that that's an opportunity as well. If we kind of stick with just the recruiting aspect of it, you've got the video interviews, you got your old fashioned, I guess, phone interviews, you got your again old fashioned in person. But when you think about the best tools to kind of uh, once you have someone that's attracted to the position, how do you uh, engage them and move it forward from there?
Right. And so I think a lot of it is what type of position are you trying to fill? Right. So if I'm trying to fill a sales position, I might wanna do a phone screen, see how they are verbally. In-person interviews are very, very important, but if you're talking about trade and things like that, you can immediately just jump to, an on-site interview, and it's not an interview at a desk in a chair, right? It is walking through, some of the bays that an auto body shop might have, and talking to them about what are some of the things that shop does, what repairs do they do, what would you do in this situation? Really providing or asking about a lot of real life situations, so that the candidate has an opportunity to really express their knowledge. And as the assessor, you could get an idea of, kind of where's the knowledge gap and how much are you willing to fill that in, and train that person up.
Any thoughts? And this is kind of maybe early in the recruitment process, that a recruiter or a potential employee would use AI. But any thoughts about how that may change things moving forward, either on either side of the fence there?
Um, if you're talking about collision, I think it, for me at least. I don't know how AI could help things or make a process more efficient. I think when you're talking about more traditional, professional based positions, it could help in the initial vetting process. But even then, I think it doesn't necessarily give people a fair shake. Um, because what's going to happen, and I think is already happening, if you're using AI to vet your candidates or applicants initially, they're using AI to create their resume. So it's kind of it's all living in the same world of AI. And of course, as an employer, you would set the parameters of AI and what do you look for. But then if I'm a job seeker, I'm going to talk to AI and say, hey, I'm looking for this kind of job. Can you write me a resume? This is my experience. So, um, specifically for auto collision, I don't know how or where AI would help in that recruitment process, to be honest.
So would you recommend then sticking with the in-person interview for a final?
I would, oh, definitely for at least the final, because you're going to have to work side by side with somebody.
Yeah, AI is not going to repair a vehicle, that's for sure, but it'll help within the process. Once someone does get acclimated to the position, as far as whether it's sourcing the parts for the repair or what have you. So it'll help in the actual process, but it
Right.
obviously it won't. At
Do you
least
think
right
it
now, Musk may come up with a robot that does it at some point. But
Right, but I think, yeah, AI is a great job tool, right? Just like we use MS Office or Word or Excel, it's gonna be something that they use as a job resource for themselves, but as far as recruitment, I don't know how far or how helpful, AI might be.
okay, let's pivot a little bit to retention. And you did mention that in the beginning, and I kind of went into this with the thought of recruitment, but retention is probably as or more important. And we've got a little bit of a time issue here, but just real quickly, what do you think about the top couple, two or three things as far as retention? I'll go back to something I've heard for years is people don't quit jobs, they quit people, or people don't quit jobs because of money. They quit jobs because of people, which means your manager or your owner, right? So
Correct.
maybe just your thoughts on those types of statements.
Right, so, just anecdotally from my experience, people who say they're leaving for money, even if you give them, a money bump, let's say, you've only bought yourself 6 months, so it's my personal philosophy that you don't try to counter to get somebody to stay. So, but with retention is recruitment. So, I think recruitment lives inside retention. So, you should always be internally recruiting your own people, right? So, the same way that you sold, why should you join our company? Why should you join us in this role? Um, that selling that happens in recruitment for an outside candidate has to continue for your own employees. And that sales pitch, if you will, or recruitment strategy internally will change as you get to know your employees, understand what their motivations are, having very, very strong communication, right? So, management and leadership is extremely important when it comes to internal recruitment. Understanding who your employees are, where do they want to be, what do they want to know, how do they want to grow themselves professionally, maybe even personally, potentially even knowing about another opportunity within the company, even though it means that you're going to lose that person, but they are very valuable to the company, you might actually talk to that hiring manager who could be your peer. Say, hey, I've had John work on my team for 5 years. Think he's I think he's great at these three things, which I think you really need. Once you have a conversation, and I think it only helps the business at the end of the day, and it also professionally helps that person that you are advocating. And it's more than holiday potluck dinners and lunches and things like that. Bonuses are fun, right? No one says no thank you to money, but it has to be intentional, it has to be meaningful, and it should be tied to performance. Um, and those are the types of things that I think are very important. Again, birthday celebrations, a cupcake on your birthday, that's great. That's nice. But it's not going to get somebody to stay at a company.
So the planning committee is only part of the whole package, if you will.
Yeah, I think it puts a nice bow on some things around company culture. Um, And again, if you're gonna do, like a quarterly meeting or an all hands meeting, things like that, making sure that whatever's communicated, the content is meaningful and it ties back to values and mission statements and key initiatives that a company might have. I think it definitely brings multiple people together who do different roles or different jobs or maybe the same job, and understand how they help support where the company's trying to go, and it creates a camaraderie, with each other as well.
Okay, great. So I don't know if you, off the top of your head, I've heard of many stories over the years of very funny HR type
Mm.
scenarios
Oh, yes.
that chief people officers or HR managers have had to deal with. Anything, just that off the top of your head that you've come across in your years of having to manage people and, rec- or I mean, it could have been a bad interview or a situation that you had to deal with at work, or maybe that all of the people that you have managed and hired have turned out to be exemplary employees and gone on to stardom.
So, there's some stories that I have that are probably not appropriate for, public consumption. Oh, I know, but, I wanna be careful about that, but, um, I think a lot of it is, for HR, at least for me, is really helping managers do what they're supposed to do, right? Do their job. So a lot of times managers will rely on HR to give the bad news. There's some things where HR does need to be involved in delivering, not so great message, but really training up a manager to do their job and to communicate effectively. Um, uh, a lot of the HR stories I have are to correct certain behaviors most of the time. So it could be attendance, it could be um, personal hygiene is a big one. The most uncomfortable that'll make most people, and that those are the personal hygiene conversations are the ones where managers ask the HR person, "Well, can't you just talk to them?" And I say no because I'm not their manager, right? Um, Others are I don't know how to put this politely, but um, kind of behavioral habits that people sometimes aren't aware of. So this is not exactly what I'm thinking of, but if somebody tends to pull on their ear too much, I don't know, something like that, or something a little more
Offensive.
offensive than that, a certain touching of themselves or something like that. That's just a bad habit, right? Those are really tricky conversations. So I've definitely in helping managers manage to those conversations is doing a lot of role play, um, and potentially being in the room during that actual conversation just as a witness, um, and to provide feedback. So sorry I couldn't give you anything more juicy than that.
Okay, we will talk offline about that and there with the people that are appropriate. But about at the end of this particular segment, and we thank you so much for your time. As we originally went into this with, this is a real opportunity in the industry, and it's a real challenge, both recruiting and retaining. So we appreciate your expertise. If you enjoyed the episode, please remember to like and subscribe. That's all for today, and thanks so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Amy.